Good morning. Welcome to the Wall Street Ride Spar virtual ride. My name is Blake Strasser. I am the rider coach for the event, and I am so glad you have joined me today and just in time for the opening bell. And there it is, the opening bell. Thank you to our sponsor, the New York Stock Exchange, and a great big welcome to you. Before we dive in, let me give you a quick overview of what you can expect today. We're going to share a mix of content with you so there's something for everybody. We want you to have a chance to see the results of your fundraising research, so we're going to share some of the videos from the TED-style talks that ASF does at their annual Day of Learning. You'll get to see ASF-funded scientists talk in plain English about their work. We've also got some original content that we've created exclusively for today, featuring key folks at ASF. And then we've got some fun stuff, including a variety of workouts for the whole family to keep you moving. So let's get ready to learn, let's get ready to play, and let's go. Let's start from the very beginning of the Autism Science Foundation, that is. Here is Executive Director Alison Singer to explain to you how ASF came to be in the first place.
Hi everyone, I'm Alison Singer. I'm the co-founder and president of the Autism Science Foundation. And first, I want to welcome you all to the Wall Street Ride Spar. I'm so sorry I can't see you all in person today, but it's great that we're all able to participate in the virtual ride. The reason I founded the Autism Science Foundation is really because of my daughter, who was diagnosed with autism back in 1999 when she was 2 years old. At that time, I really was no stranger to autism because my older brother had actually been diagnosed with autism back in 1968. So I have been part of the autism community my entire life. But at the time that my brother was diagnosed in the 1960s, we knew really nothing about autism. We had no idea that autism was a genetic disorder. We had no idea that there were any interventions or treatments that could possibly help people with autism. In fact, autism was blamed on bad parenting. My mother was told that it was her fault that my brother was diagnosed with autism because she could not properly bond with him. She was called a refrigerator mother and told she was too cold to raise a child and she should try harder with the next child. And that next child was me. And look how cute I was there in my pigtails, if only. But we have learned so much in the time between when my brother was diagnosed in the 1960s to now in 2020. We've learned a tremendous amount about the causes of autism. We've developed some interventions that we know work for people with autism, but there's still so much that we don't know and so much that we have to learn. And that's why it's so important for us to raise money to support autism research. So a little bit about autism. Right now, 1 in 54 children in the United States are diagnosed with an autism spectrum disorder. And what that means is that these children have difficulties with language, they have problems with their behavior, and they have difficulty with social skills. We also see a lot of other types of problems associated with children who have autism. They have difficulty sleeping. Many of them suffer from tremendous anxiety or obsessive compulsive disorder. Many of them have seizures, and some of them also have gastrointestinal issues. What we know about autism is that every person with autism is different. We have people who are diagnosed with autism who have no language, and we have some who have an abundance of language. We have some who have an IQ That puts them in the genius category, but we also have many, many people with autism who have intellectual disability and an IQ below 70, even below 50. We know that regardless of the symptoms associated with an individual's autism, their autism significantly impacts their quality of life throughout their whole life. Autism is something that affects people for their entire life. No one dies from autism, so we need to be able to offer supports and treatments for individuals across their entire lifespan. And in order to do that appropriately, we really need to fund more research to understand the causes of autism and develop treatments so that the interventions that we're offering people are biologically and medically sound. I mean, back when my daughter was diagnosed in the 90s, we knew nothing about the causes of autism even then, and several doctors told me I should just put her on a little Prozac. And I remember saying, oh, what's the underlying biological mechanism by which the Prozac is going to help her autism? And they, sort of look at me quizzically and say, they don't know, but it might make her feel better. And maybe I should take some too. We have to do better than that. That's not acceptable. So our mission at the Autism Science Foundation is to raise money to provide funds to scientists who are the cutting edge thinkers when it comes to autism research. And the research we fund is specifically targeted at studies that we know have the potential to improve the real lives of real people with autism. We also spend a lot of time sharing information about autism with the general public and helping our families to deal with a lot of the issues that arise as a result of having a family member with autism. So we provide, as I said, direct funds to scientists who are studying autism. We work to build out the scientific infrastructure and help the universities to work together. Believe me, that is not the sexiest part of autism research. No one wants to do that, but it is critically needed. People talk all the time about how if only we could get the universities to work together, if only we could get them to share their databases. So we focus on that a lot because it's so necessary. We also spend a lot of time and energy on stakeholder education. You know, the new knowledge that we're developing doesn't help anyone if the families don't know about it. So we spend a lot of time developing webinars and conferences so that we can get the science into the community. And we also serve as a strong voice for science in the media, trying to dispel myths about autism, encouraging families to participate in clinical trials about new autism interventions, and basically encouraging families to seek evidence-based interventions for their family members with autism. Over the last 5 to 10 years, we've learned a tremendous amount about the causes of autism. We know, for example, we can find the genes that cause autism in about 15 to 20% of the kids with autism. We've identified over 100 genes associated with autism, and they work together in ways that we're still trying to understand, but our knowledge is increasing tremendously. We also know that 4 times as many boys are diagnosed with autism versus girls, and we're trying to understand what it is about being a girl that protects people from being diagnosed with autism. We've also spent a good amount of time developing biomarkers so that we can diagnose autism earlier and more objectively. And we have discovered that we can already see differences in the brain structure of children who go on to be diagnosed with autism in the 2nd trimester prenatally. We see that kids who go on to be diagnosed with autism have a very unusual pattern of head growth, which is something we can measure with a tape measure. So that's a great biomarker. And we also see that children who go on to be diagnosed with autism have this very unusual pattern of looking even as early as 6 weeks. Rather than looking at people's eyes on faces, they're much more attracted to mouths. So by diagnosing earlier, we can get children into good early intervention programs. And we know that this is really the best chance, early intervention is really the best chance that people have for developing skills. We've also discovered a lot of early warning signs about autism that help us to diagnose autism earlier. We are learning more about who is at risk. We know the younger siblings of children who are diagnosed with autism are at elevated risk. We know that children who don't respond to their name, who have motor delays, who have difficulty sharing their attention with others are at risk. And we've also invested in developing new treatments. We now have 2 FDA-approved medications for symptoms associated with autism. We're in various stages of clinical trials, including phase 3 human clinical trials of different medications that are targeted at the core symptoms of autism, the social deficits, and the learning disability. So we are working hard to develop those, as well as to develop new behavioral interventions and interventions that are appropriate for use in school. And as I said, part of our mission is to help bring the science into the community. We do this by sponsoring days of learning. We've done it in New York, we've done them in San Francisco. Now we're doing them virtually. Our last day of learning in September attracted 800 people from all over the world, as far away as Istanbul. So we were really excited that we're able to reach more and more people and help them understand the science. We produce an award-winning science podcast that I like to say translates the science into English. And a lot of families find that very useful. In it, we explain the science that has been published that week and why it's important for families to know about it. We also give grants for parents to attend scientific conferences. We sponsor a symposium for special education teachers. We work to advocate on the federal and state and local level for more money for research. We've done a lot of policy work around preventing wandering. And we also, when we're working with adults, we're also working to improve access to job training, appropriate housing options, and education. You know, the learning window doesn't magically close at 21. We believe everyone should be lifelong learners, including people with autism. And we have made some changes as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. All families are suffering in the COVID-19 pandemic, but I think families who have children with autism have been particularly hard hit. Remote learning is challenging for everyone, but it's particularly challenging for kids with autism who need access to special education teachers and for whom therapy really needs to be delivered one-on-one in the room to keep the kids focused. So we have been sponsoring grants to scientists to help them adapt their studies to support telehealth-based diagnosis and intervention. We are conducting families for scientists. We're conducting webinars for families and scientists on everything from how to get your child to wear a mask, using techniques of applied behavior analysis, to yoga for families to help them try to calm down a little bit and relax together as a family. We've created resource pages. We are sponsoring science fairs to bring parents and scientists together. As I said, we're doing online days of learning. And we are also creating projects and opportunities to support underserved communities and communities of color, where there is a lag in the age of diagnosis, and also a lot of challenges with regard to access to services. This is my brother now. He's now 56 years old. He lives in a group home in New York State, and he's doing well. We continue to try to teach him to talk. As I said, I believe the learning window never closes. This is my brother Stephen, and this is my daughter Jody, who's now 23 years old. Hard to believe I have a daughter that age, but I do. And she lives and works on a farm in the Catskills in New York State. She raises goats and chickens and pigs, and she is very happy in the work that she's doing, and she's great at it. She has always loved animals, and now she has turned her love for animals into a vocation. I love this picture. This is my daughter Jody and her friends after a hard day at work on the farm. They all work very hard, and it's really a testament to why we need people like you who are participating in the Ride Far and who are helping us to raise money so that individuals with autism can have happy and fulfilling lives and reach their full potential. So again, my tremendous thanks to all of you for participating today.
Okay, so now that we know how ASF got to this point, our next couple of videos will talk about where ASF is now. First, here's a quick 5-minute piece about ASF in 2020.
Science is our best hope. I think, to move forward and being able to help people who are affected by autism and their families.
The Autism Science Foundation was built to put science before everything else, figuring out what works, what doesn't, what is important to understand to help people with autism.
The top scientists actually have a voice in what the Autism Science Foundation funds.
Many of the other advocacy organizations are not necessarily focusing on evidence-based practices and true science.
Autism researchers understand that before they move on to the next interesting, exciting thing, the findings that they have need to be replicated, extended, and validated.
The Autism Science Foundation is leading the charge in identifying autism.
The science drives the agenda.
Girls tend to be more severely affected by autism, but there's really a problem in pre-existing research because there's such an imbalance in the sexes in autism. And so the work that the Autism Science Foundation is funding to do these better studies is really important for understanding that.
We understand autism in males. The girls are just not analyzed in the data. We're doing broader studies, network studies, pooling females together to better learn.
ASF is investing in young investigators, trying to attract the very brightest young minds and providing support.
The Autism Science Foundation helped to support me in my first full-time research experience this past summer, working in a dedicated, smart autism researchers in the field.
It Takes Brains is very important to the scientific community. What we really need to do is understand what's going on in the brain. And a project like It Takes Brains is really laying the foundation for us to be able to begin to do that.
We have a lot of studies in animal brains, and that provides some proxy for understanding the brain. But the brain tissue itself from children or adults who are affected is enormously valuable.
ASF is one of the first organizations that is on Facebook and Twitter and actually taking really complex articles that nobody reads outside of academia and putting news bites out there so that the lay people understand it.
The media is now looking to the Autism Science Foundation as the resource to go to for accurate information.
Most of the time, the studies don't even appear on any of the other major websites until after ASF has put them on a podcast.
The Autism Science Foundation's TED Talks have provided a way that highly skilled investigators can present their perspectives, their findings, and their hopes for the future.
The Autism Science Foundation was involved in the PBS NOVA documentary, Vaccines Calling the Shots, and parents really should see that.
What the documentary did was presented the science, presented a really reasonable rationale, and embedded the autism story within that.
Scoring Goals for Autism is a charity event that we started in 2011, and it was really our son's vision to create a day of soccer where everyone can play. We were very proud to receive the support from the Autism Science Foundation because they believed in what we were doing.
This event is intended to show our appreciation and provide support in the best way we feel we can.
The scientific community relies entirely on the autism community, families, and affected kids to participate and to drive the research forward, and that's the only way that we're going to learn.
The Autism Science Foundation is supporting some of the most exciting, the most innovative research in the field of autism. And it's doing it because of the support of people who do things like come to the gala.
Autism Science Foundation needs your support to help get closer to the answers that we need.
As a parent, it's important for me to care about the science of autism because I won't be able to be there always for my son. I need to know that science will provide both research and treatments that can help my son when I'm not around.
And now I am pleased to bring you ASF's Chief Science Officer, Alycia Halladay. As you can imagine, trying to do autism research in the age of COVID is challenging, to say the least. ASF's funded scientists have had to make some big changes in the way they do their studies. Alicia's here to tell you all about it.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining the Wall Street Rides Far today. I know this was not the way you expected to participate in the ride, but we hope to make this day a really fantastic experience for you. I wanted to share with you a few of the things that Autism Science Foundation has been able to do thanks to the support and your support of Wall Street Rides Far. My name is Alycia Halladay, and I'm the Chief Science Officer of the Autism Science Foundation. Of course, we had to change our practices and change our priorities with the pandemic, just like everybody else did. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the things that we did that we would have normally done during the pandemic. The first thing we did was to try to respond to the needs of both families and scientists during this unprecedented time. Because of social distancing, scientists were not able to complete some of the critical studies they needed to help discover things that would immediately impact families. So we awarded new projects in different areas that allowed scientists to finish up what they had started, just in a different way, just using social distancing protocols. We also created a mechanism called the COVID Research Grant to help scientists better understand the effects of social distancing on families with ASD. Of course, we had to survey what the families with autism needed, what was lacking, what was helping, and what was challenging to kind of figure out what we needed to advocate for and what we needed to push for change. I'll talk about the results of those studies a little bit later. We also built virtual communities. We partnered with something called the Autism Navigator, which is an online resource tool based out of Florida to help families from different racial and ethnic backgrounds and socioeconomic statuses to learn more about the early signs of autism and help them provide resources for their care providers. We also created a virtual community for them so that care providers would be able to learn the signs and symptoms of autism and be able to do a first pass screening on their own using technology like Zoom or Vimeo or any of the other social distancing video platforms. And we also identified practical areas to inform families. We wanted to help families get through this pandemic. And so we hosted a series of webinars and resources so that families would have a better understanding of what their challenges were, what they needed to do. And of course, we responded to them to figure out what they needed the most. I want to tell you a little bit about these amazing research projects we funded that continued and allowed scientists to finish projects and discover new things that are going to help families affected with ASD. The first one is enhancing remote learning. We all know if we have kids that curriculum for in-class learning is much different than virtual learning. And this goes for families with ASD as well. Some of the math curriculum to help students with ASD needed to be adapted to a virtual platform. So we helped researchers at Florida State do just that. And that way they'll be able to deliver this new curriculum to students, which may help students in these school districts in Florida, but it's also going to help as it expands outward to other communities as well. We also recognize that a lot of families were very concerned about their children during the pandemic, even if they hadn't yet gotten a diagnosis. Unfortunately, autism is so complex that there is no one biomarker or one behavioral test that makes a diagnosis. In fact, it's a series of multiple tests that really need an in-person evaluation. So we capitalized on an ASF project and provided additional funding to researchers at the University of Miami so they could use these glasses, which you can see Amy on wearing here, which had a video camera attached to it. And this way, parents could be the clinicians kind of assessing their children, and the video feed would be delivered live streamed to clinicians either in their house, in their offices, or at hospitals, or wherever they were, to help interpret the findings and interpret the behaviors so a proper diagnosis could be made. We also recognize that not everyone has access to remote virtual learning because they don't have things like the internet or computers or tablets. And this was the case for a group at Southwest Texas State University who was looking at an intervention that was going to be delivered in the classrooms of Hispanic families in Southwest Texas. When schools were closed in early March, these opportunities for intervention no longer existed. So we chipped in and bought tablets and hotspots for these families so that they could continue to receive this intervention, even if it was done differently. Now here's the survey I was talking about. We assessed over 1,000 families with a rare genetic disorder associated with ASD and asked them, what were their challenges? What were their opportunities? What worked and what didn't? We did this in like the first month of the pandemic to really understand how parents were dealing with things right at the very beginning. We found that telehealth was huge, that in fact it was enormously helpful for families. But even in the early days of the pandemic, not everyone was even being able to be benefited by telehealth. Either they didn't have access to it or it just wasn't helping them. So this is really going to help us going forward to better understand how telehealth can help, how it may need to be enhanced, and what researchers can do to make these opportunities better for families. And also, of course, we wanted to directly help the families that we serve. So we created a webinar series. These were 1-hour webinars on topics from anything from resilience to trauma to more practical things like how to wear personal protective equipment, how to participate in mindfulness training, as well as other things. We also didn't just do this by ourselves. We partnered with places like the Children's Specialized Hospital out of New Jersey, who loaned us their clinicians to help us walk through with families to help give them the tools and skills that they needed to help better navigate this new world of the pandemic and social distancing. Thank you so much for your participation in the Rides Far event this year. I'm sorry I wasn't able to see you in person in New York this weekend, but I want you to know how appreciated your support is and how far your funding is going to help families across the spectrum. Thank you, and I hope to see you next year.
Okay, it is time to shake things up a bit. And by shake things up, I mean it is time to get off our couches, move our bodies. So I'm excited to introduce to you guys Angela Hubbs.
Hello!
Hey, lady, how are you?
I am living the dream. I can hang out with you.
Look at all those medals. How fierce are you? Ooh, I'm afraid of you. It is so great to see you. I'm going to turn off my camera, girl. I'm going to be sweating with you, and I'm just going to hand it over to your fabulousness.
All right, well, I'm ready. I hope you guys are ready too. So I find it more inspirational to have music. So if you have the playlist, the Spotify playlist, make sure you pull that up for yourself so that you've got some jams to move with. Otherwise, you're going to hear me sing at you. Now I'm going to tell you what's going to happen. We're going to do what's called an interval-based workout together. This is something you can do in a little bit of space. You don't need any equipment, and you can make this as hard or as easy as you need it to be. I know you can almost see my clock over here. You'll see green means relax, red means give it all you got, and I promise I will explain it. So go ahead and stand up. I'm going to start my little timer. Whoa, so we're going to start with a warm-up. You're going to make your feet really wide. Just start by taking a big breath in, both of your hands up and over your head. Exhale, let it drop. We'll do that again. Big breath in. Exhale, let it drop. One more time, big breath in. And now exhale, you're going to stand up. Now, whatever music you have going on, if you don't have music, again, you're going to hear me sing at you. But you're just going to step to the right, to the left. We're going to start taking a little energy, a little blood pumping in your body. So all I want you to do is start bopping from right to left, left to right. Now we're going to make it up a little bit. You're going to start to kick yourself in the butt. I'm going to lower you just a little bit so you can see more of my body, more of my space. So right now you're just stepping to the right. You're stepping to the left. You're kicking yourself in the butt. Right to left, left to right. Now lift those knees, lift those knees. We're turning on all kinds of body parts right now. Lifting all kinds of body parts. Woo! So now we're going to make it even bigger. Keep both feet on the ground. Right now we're just bopping from right to left. Reach far, reach far. I Again, this is just to get a little blood pumping so that when we get into our real workout, you're gonna start to feel the burn. Reach across, reach across. Up. Feeling good, feeling strong. Now, because I don't have music, I'm imagining some of my favorite songs in my head. I want you to have like a moment where you get to feel expressed, where you get to feel good. So I just want you to pull out any of your dance moves to whatever song you got going on. Wiggle that tush, wiggle that tush. Bring some energy and some life into your moment, and then take it back to the step from side to side. We have 3 more minutes of our warm-up here. I love to dance. That's kind of one of my favorite things to do. Kick yourself in the butt. So I find any excuse ever to dance. Knees up, knees up. Oh, boom, boom. Knees up, knees up. Both feet on the ground. Reach across. So far, so good, right? Feeling good, feeling strong. Reach over. From here, you're gonna keep your feet really wide. Take your hands on the inside of your knees, like you're trying to press your knees away, and then drop one shoulder. And then drop the other shoulder. This should feel nice. Should feel like a little bit of a stretch. Then we're gonna make it saucy. Boom, boom. Make it saucy. Boom. Pause in the middle, keep pressing those knees apart. Make your spine round, and then sit. Make your spine round, and sit. We're gonna do that 2 more times. Make your spine round, and sit. Last one, make your spine round, and sit. From here, you're gonna make everything round, soften, and rise. Come all the way up to the top. You're gonna open your hands wide. We're gonna call this a windmill from here. You're gonna touch your opposite foot, opposite hand. Boom, make it big. Feel that stretch. Feel that blood pumping. We got 1.5 minutes before we start the good stuff. Open wide. Boom. Feeling good. Feeling good. You're gonna pick one, stay there and hold it. Stay there and hold it. Feel that stretch. Feeling good, feeling long. 3, 2, 1. From here, you're just gonna slide it to the other side and hold it. Breathe and hold it. 3, 2, 1. Come back to the middle. Heavy hands, heavy head. Soften and rise. Big breath in. Big breath out. Sit down. Elbows to knees. We've got 10 of those. That was 9 or 10. This is 9. 8. Warming everything up. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. Here's our last one. I'm gonna make this a challenge one. Sit down and hold it for 10, 9. Can you sit down a little lower? 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Stand up. Woo! And shake it out. All right, my friends. We are about to begin. I'm actually going to hit pause on my timer. We're going to do a series of exercises that we're going to do for 1 minute. You'll get 10 seconds break, and then we'll go to another series of exercises. I promise this will make sense once we do it. So I'm going to show you the 3 exercises we're going to do. First one is called a squat curtsy. So it's going to look like this. Level 1, hands on your hips. You're just going to sit down in that imaginary chair, stand up, and then bow to the queen. So it's a sit, bow to the queen. That's exercise number 1. Squat curtsy. Sit, bow to the queen. Exercise number 2 is called a bicycle crunch and a Superman. So this is going to look like this. Imagine if you were laying down, hands behind your head, opposite knee, opposite elbow. You'll do 10 of those. Then you'll turn around and you're going to do what's called a Superman. You're flying through the air, Superman, down. Fly through the air, Superman, and down. So 10 and 10. If you want to make that harder for yourself, instead of keeping your feet on the floor, lift them off the floor. Easy. That's exercise number 2. Bicycle crunch, Superman. Exercise number 3 is called a dip and a push-up. So for a dip, you can do this on, if you have a chair, you can do this on the floor. I'm going to do it on the floor. You're going to bring your hands behind you. You're going to lift your rear end off of the ground. The higher you go, the straighter your legs, the harder this becomes. The more bent, the closer you are, the easier this is. You're just going to bend your arms and push. And that's it. You'll do 10 of those. Then you'll flip around, and we're going to do a set of push-ups. Now, you can do these push-ups on the wall. You can do them on the floor on your knees, or you can do them on a table on a flat surface. I'm going to do level 1 of all of these exercises. So if you need it to be harder, please make it harder. Otherwise, follow me, and I'm going to do level 1. Are you ready? Do you have your jams going? All right, friends, we're going to start. First exercise is squat, curtsy to the queen. All right, here we go. So red means go. Here we go. Squat, curtsy to the queen. Curtsy to the queen. Hello, queen. The lower you go, the harder this is. So for those of you who want to make this really hard, sit down very low curtsy to the queen. Like I said, I'll stay at level 1. Curtsy to the queen. Curtsy to the queen. If this does not feel good for your knees, stay with the squat or step backwards for the curtsy part. So it's like a lunge. Curtsy to the queen. We've got 25 seconds to go. The slower you go, the harder it becomes. Slow motion. Slow motion, curtsy to the queen. Curtsy to the queen. Woo! Are you breathing? Keep the breaths going. I'm feeling it. I'm feeling it. Here we go. 10 seconds break. That was round 1. Okay, so now, come on down. This is the bicycle crunch Superman. 10 of each. Prepare. Here we go. Bicycle, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Flip it over. Superman, lift. 1, touch. 2, touch. Remember, you can keep your feet on the ground. That's not cheating. 4, 5, 6, 7. How you doing? 8, 9. Flip it over. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We got 13 seconds to go. Here we go. Last 10. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. You guys got it. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And come on down. You got 10 seconds break. Oh, I was hoping to get that last 10 in. All right, so this is a dip push-up. Sit on your rear end, come to a chair, hips as high as you can get them. Again, I'm going to stay at level 1. The lower your hips, the easier this is. 2. We got 10. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That's 10. Push-ups are next. So either stay on the ground. Again, I'm going to stay at level 1. You can come to a wall. You can come to a chair. 10. Push. 9, 8, 7, 6, 5. How you doing? 4, 3, 2. Let's see if we can get one more round in. That means we got to pick it up just a little bit. Here we go. It's 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Can you get to those push-ups? Here we go. 1, 2. Oh, time. All right, we're going back to exercise number 1. You guys ready? This is squat, curtsy to the queen. Now, if that was easy on the first round, here you go. Make it harder for yourself. Sit. Curtsy to the queen. Curtsy to the queen. You got those jams going? Maybe you can move to the beat of your music. Curtsy to the queen. Curtsy to the queen. Because I don't have music, I'm going to sing it out. It's a curtsy to the queen. to the queen. Curtsy to the queen. Curtsy to the queen. Ooh, da, da, ooh, da. Pull out my inner Michael Jackson. Ooh, da, da. We're doing great. Squat, curtsy to the queen. Squat, curtsy to the queen. We got 17 seconds to go. Curtsy, ah, ah. Squat, curtsy to the queen. That playlist is so good. So there's a part of me that's jealous that I can't listen to the playlist. Lovely day, lovely day. Great. All right, here we go. Exercise number 2. Bicycle crunch, Superman. If it was easy the first round, take it up to the next level. Next level is both feet off the ground. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Flip it over. Here we go, Superman. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You're doing awesome. 9, 10. I'm feeling it. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 24 seconds to go. 8, 9, 10. Let's see if we can get to that third round. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We got 7 seconds to go. Let's see if we can do the 10. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5. Oh, almost. You're doing awesome. Next, it's the dips, push-ups. Come on, friends. I want you to remember me later. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, here we go. Push-up city. Strong. Wow. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Here we go. Dip city. Keep going. Can you feel your arms yet? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Here we go. We can do it. 10 more. That's it. Right here. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Dip city. Oh, it's okay. All right, here we go. We are back at squat curtsy. This is our last round. You're doing awesome. You got it right here. Squat, curtsy to the queen, curtsy to the queen. Are you feeling it? I'm feeling it. I'm feeling stuff. I'm feeling my thighs. I'm feeling my arms. Feeling good. Feeling alive. Feeling like I'm making a difference. You guys are doing fantastic. Thank you for being here, for putting in the effort. I know it's not easy, especially at the end, but you're here. And because you're here, you're making a difference in the lives of so many who need you. Here we go, guys. 25 seconds. Curtsy to the queen. Curtsy. Whoa. Curtsy to the queen. Make her feel good. Make her feel fine. Woo. Here we go. 10 seconds to go. Give it all you got. This is the last round right here. Last one. Last round, that is. Curtsy. Woo. Curtsy. I feel like a genie. All right, here we go. This is bicycle crunch. Superman. Make it as hard as you need it to be. Last round. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Flip it over. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Woo. Feeling it. Feeling good. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We're doing it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, tired at this point, that means you're doing it right. See the glisten? I got a glisten. Here we go. Dip it. Dip City. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Here we go, friends. Come on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Zip, dip, city. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Come on, 19 seconds to go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Feeling good. 9, 10. 5 seconds to go. Come on, get a couple more in. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, perfect. Right where you are, come to the ground. Woo! You're gonna come to the ground and let your knees bend a lot. How do you feel? Do you feel a little warm? I'm a little glistening. I got a little glisten going to me. You're gonna just sit up as tall as you can. We'll come back to that other stretch, but take a breath in, take a breath out, just slide your hands to your heart. We're gonna do that 3 more times like that. Big breath in. 1 more. Keep your legs crisscrossy applesauce. Take your right hand to the ground. Reach your left hand up and over. Feel that stretch down that whole side of your body. In fact, you're going to take this hand right behind the nape of your neck and use your head, look up, and feel that stretch all the way through your elbow down into the side of your waist. We're going to up this stretch a little bit. So if this feels good, stay here. Or you're going to take that left leg and just spin it around. That should feel really nice. You're going to let go with your left hand. You're actually going to grab that left ankle, lean even more over to your right as you pull that heel towards your butt. This should feel like a stretch up the front of your thigh. And it looks pretty. Feels good. Feels mermaidy. I like feeling like a mermaid. You're going to let go and come back to crisscrossy applesauce. Take a big breath in. Full breath out. Take your left hand now to the ground. Reach up and over. Feel that stretch down that whole right side of your body. Big breath in. Full breaths out. We're going to up the stretch. Take the hand right behind the nape of your neck and turn your gaze up. Feel that stretch now all the way from your elbow down into your hip. We're going to up it just a little bit. Take that leg, that right leg that is, and keep reaching up and over. You're going to let go. Take that right hand, grab your ankle, pull it in towards your rear end. How you doing? Right? I call this the candy at the end. It's like all of the torture in the middle, all the loving torture, of course, leading to this like really beautiful stretch. Oh, it's like candy. You're gonna let go. Let both of your knees stay bent a lot. And you're gonna hold on right underneath of your knee pit. Imagine I just put glue right on your thighs and right on your chest. Keep everything together and maybe walk your butt backwards or your feet forward. But only go where you can stay connected. And what you'll start to feel is this really beautiful stretch through your spine, your lower back, not just your hamstrings. Keep your chin to your chest and pause. What you might start to feel is your legs want to go straighter and straighter. So at some point you might want to let go, and that's totally fine. But just let this feel good. Let go that it has to look like anything in particular. We're going to hold it for another count of 5. Just breathe. 4, 3, 2, 1. Very good. We're going to let go. And from here, just open your feet to a butterfly. The farther away you are, that's called diamond. That will feel good for your back. The closer your feet are, this is butterfly or bounded angle. And that's going to feel more in your inner thighs. So if there's somewhere in between that you need, just make this feel really good for your body. Start first by taking a breath in and sitting up as tall as you can, and then as you exhale, you're going to start to lean forward. Let go that your forehead has to touch your feet. I promise there's nothing special about feet. Just pour over your legs and hold for 5, 4, 3, 2, and release. From here, you're going to stand up for me. And this will feel very familiar because we actually started with this. Take a big breath in, more air than you think you need. Exhale and let it drop. Inhale. Exhale. One more time, big breath in. Exhale. You're going to stay over, hands on the inside. Inside, press those knees open. Drop one shoulder and we'll pause. And then we'll switch, drop the other shoulder and pause. Come back to the center, push both. Let everything drop heavy. We'll hold heavy for a count of 5. Heavy hands, heavy head, everything heavy. 3, 2, soften your knees and rise 1 vertebrae at a time. Come all the way up, take another big breath in. And as you slide your hands to your heart, leave a little space in between the palms of your hands. Leave that space open for what a gift you are to the world. Thank you so much for playing along. Blake, how do you feel?
Girl, seriously, next time I see the queen, my quads are gonna be like,
You're gonna remember me tomorrow.
Like I could forget you. Thank you so much. Angela, where can people find you? Is it angelahubs.com or where can people find you?
I am at angelahubs.com, and my handle for every piece of social media is at Angela Hubs. It's like hugs, but with bees.
But with bees. Don't hug bees though, man. Ow.
Yeah. Don't hug bees.
Don't hug bees. Love bees. Don't hug bees. Thank you so much. You're fabulous. I miss your face. I'll see you in person soon, I hope.
I love you. Love you.
Love you. All right. That was so great. Okay. So just like at the ride, we've been at this for almost an hour now, which means it's time for an oasis. And it looks like Will and Rebecca have a theme set up just for you guys. So let's roll on in.
Hi, riders.
Riders! Rider!
Woo-hoo! I'm Rebecca.
And I'm Will.
Welcome to the Spooky Oasis.
We're back yet again, but we have to be apart because of this social distancing. Yeah, it's kind of crazy. But thank you, Wall Street Rides Far. We've got some treats for you, and we'll save them until next year.
Well, maybe.
We might eat them.
We might eat them.
Have a great ride.
Have a great ride.
We'll see you next time.
See you next year.
And we'll be spooky then too.
Yes, promise. Bye. Ride safe.
So spooky. Okay, back to business. I want to share a couple of videos with you guys from the Day of Learning. Every year, ASF hosts an entire day of TED-style talks. They're geared towards parents of kids with autism and other folks with an interest in the issue. The 2 talks I want to share with you today are films that we think are of interest to anyone in the general public. The first is a talk from Dr. Paul Offit. He's the director of the Vaccine Education Center and professor of pediatrics, as well as an attending physician in the Division of Infectious Disease at Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. In this talk, particularly timely for 2020, he talks about science denialists and anti-vaxxers and what we can do about them. Let's watch.
So I think we have drifted from a time of scientific illiteracy really into scientific denialism. People simply declare their own truths. Vaccine caused autism, climate change is a hoax, evolution and creationism are equally valid hypotheses. And I think as a consequence, science is starting to lose its rightful place as a source of truth. So I want to talk about sort of how I think it's really important now more than ever for scientists to stand up and explain what they do and why they do it to the public. And there are a number of challenges there, a few of which I'm going to go through today. The first is the challenge of the scientific method. So, for example, in 1998, Andrew Wakefield published a paper in The Lancet claiming that the combination measles, mumps, rubella vaccine caused autism. Now, there were 12 children in this paper. It wasn't a study, it was really just a case series, 8 of whom had autism within a month of receiving the vaccine. I mean, just for those of you who may be epidemiologists in the future, you should always have more study subjects than authors. There were 13 authors in this study, but in any case, the best you could say about this paper was that he raised the hypothesis. Now, in science, the way it works is your hypothesis is the null hypothesis, or said another way, in this case, the MMR vaccine does not cause autism. You can do two things with that null hypothesis. You can reject it, which is to say that when autism follows receipt of the MMR vaccine, it occurs at a level that would be greater than would be expected by chance alone, or you can not reject it, which is to say when autism follows receipt of the MMR vaccine, it occurs at a level that would be expected by chance alone. Which is what happened. So there were now, there's sort of 5 studies shown here, another 5 studies shown here. There's been 18 studies in all, showing now that when autism follows receipt of the MMR vaccine, it's at a level that would be expected by chance alone. The 18th study was actually just published within the past couple of weeks. And it was interesting, so some of the people in the media came to me and said, do you think that this is now going to change people's mind? Yeah, that's what we needed. We needed the 18th study. 17 was not nearly enough. But what you can't do is you can't accept the null hypothesis, or said another way, you can never prove never. I mean, epidemiological studies aren't mathematical theorems, there aren't formal proofs. Technically, the researcher can never say the MMR vaccine does not cause autism. I'll give you other examples. I mean, when I was a little boy, I used to watch the television show Superman. That was the one with George Reeves, right? So it was like one of those "How old are you?" questions. So you remember that Superman. As this thing from Christopher Reeve, which probably most of you remember. But in any case, Superman flew. I mean, he put his sort of interlocking thumb grip, which I thought was key to the whole navigational experience, kind of went to the left or he went to the right. I mean, his towel, his cape flew behind him, his hair flew behind him. He looked down at the city. So when you're 5 years old, television doesn't lie. So I went to the backyard and I sort of went on a small chair and put a towel around me and tried with the interlocking thumb grip to fly a few times unsuccessfully. Now that didn't prove I couldn't fly. I mean, I could have done it a million times. That wouldn't have proven I couldn't fly either. It would have made it all the more statistically unlikely. I mean, similarly, you can't prove that there weren't weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. You can only say that they were nowhere that you looked. You can't prove that I've never been to Juneau, Alaska, even though I've never been to Juneau, Alaska. You can only show a series of pictures of buildings in Juneau, Alaska with me not standing next to them. And I think here's the way that plays out in this particular scenario. So in 2002, Dan Burton, who was a Republican from Indiana, who was on the he was the head of the Committee of Government Reform, he held a hearing basically to air his belief that the vaccines cause autism. He believed that his grandson Christian's autism was caused by vaccines. So he had a panel that included Andrew Wakefield to sort of make that case, as well as a number of sort of fringe pediatricians who offered cures for autism. On the other panel were me, as well as epidemiologists, including Colleen Boyle from the CDC, and she was great. I mean, she did, I think, a yeoman's job to the degree that there were, data that were clear at that point to explain what epidemiological studies can and can't do. But what she said was, all the evidence to date doesn't support the hypothesis that at least within the populations that we've looked at, that there is a clear association between vaccines and autism. That's basically what she said, and he got angry. I mean, I don't know if you've ever read the sort of transcript of this meeting. You can't tell how angry he got, but he screamed at her. So he said, you've got an out in the back of this thing. You can't tell me that vaccines don't cause autism because you just don't know, do you? Because she couldn't say, being respectful to the scientific method, the MMR vaccine doesn't cause autism. And so that hurt her. And I think that the lesson here is one shouldn't be verbally handcuffed by the scientific method. I think you should be able to get over it, to realize that when you say MMR doesn't cause autism, you're not going to be struck dead by the gods of the scientific method, because vaccines don't cause autism, and I can't fly, at least not without a plane. I think the other thing is, and this is probably the biggest thing, I think trying to get the public to understand and trust the scientific process. So this from Edmund Wilson's Consilience: science is a systematic enterprise of gathering knowledge about the world and condensing that knowledge into testable laws and theories. And the key word here is testable. I mean, you can test whether or not MMR is associated with autism. You can't test how many angels can dance on the head of a pin. That's more of a theological question. That's not going to be answered in a scientific venue. This you can answer. And so what you do is you formulate a hypothesis, you establish burdens of proof, you subject those proofs to statistical analysis. Really, science is the study of controls. In the case of MMR and autism, make sure that both groups are alike in terms of their healthcare seeking behavior, their socioeconomic background, their medical background. So you can isolate the effect of that one variable, receipt of the MMR vaccine. What it isn't scientists or scientific bodies or accumulated knowledge. Scientists are willing to take a textbook and throw it over their shoulder without a backward glance as you get more and more information. I mean, science really is a way of thinking about a problem. It's a way of approaching a problem. I would argue we're all scientists, right? I mean, your radio doesn't work. So you formulate a series of hypotheses. It's not tuned to an active station. The batteries are dead. It's not plugged in. That's scientific thinking. Then you go about testing each of those hypotheses. I mean, you're not going to say, my radio isn't working because I had an argument with my wife this morning. That's not scientific thinking. That's magical thinking, and we actually all engage in it far more than we'd like to believe. So I think the beauty of science is it is enormously self-correcting, which I think is difficult for people. So, for example, in 1926, Johannes Fibiger won the Nobel Prize for his discovery of a worm called Spirogyra carcinoma as a cause of stomach cancer, even though that was dead wrong. In 1935, Egas Moniz, a Portuguese neurologist, also won the Nobel Prize for his invention of a surgical procedure which he called leucotomy, that he believed could cure a variety of psychiatric illnesses, including schizophrenia. When it crossed the Atlantic Ocean, that name was changed to lobotomy, and we performed 20,000 lobotomies in this country, really up into the 1970s. 7,000 actually were performed by one man, a guy named Walter Jackson Freeman, who was a graduate of the University of Pennsylvania School of Medicine, which is where I teach. Similarly, Ansel Keys in 1957 won this cover of Time magazine for his invention of the quote-unquote healthy diet. He believed that saturated fats were bad, unsaturated fats were good, and that therefore butter was bad, driving us into the waiting arms of partially hydrogenated vegetable oils, i.e. margarine, which was loaded with trans fats, and according to the Harvard Harvard Medical School, responsible for about 250,000 cardiovascular-related events and deaths a year, and ultimately caused Time magazine to change their cover. And then these two guys, that's Stanley Pons on the left, Marty Fleischmann on the right, they believe that if you took a palladium wire, inserted into deuterium, which is heavy water, attached it to a battery, that you could get two small nuclei to fuse, forming a larger nucleus, which would then release energy, which was very attractive. This was right around the time of the Exxon Valdez oil spill disaster, and it was sort of served as this clean, limitless source of energy. It was called cold fusion. Good. And it was dead wrong. It should have bothered people that this violated the first law of thermodynamics, which is that you can't get more energy out of something than you put into it, which is why you'll never have a perpetual motion machine. Nonetheless, the media ran with it. So the University of Utah gave $5 million to establish the National Cold Fusion Research Institute, which is a building that still stands on the University of Utah campus. It's just not called that anymore. But I think for many people that fluidity of science can be disconcerting. They hear these stories and they say, see, that's why you can't trust science. And so, for example, it's what I call the Bones-McCoy seduction. Bones-McCoy was the chief medical officer of the USS Enterprise on Star Trek. And so in his hand, there was a tricorder. And if you had a series of signs and symptoms, he would sort of scan you up and down, and he would look at that readout, and that's what you had. And that was very reassuring to know that he knew everything you needed to know. And so we're drawn to the guru. The Mehmet Oz, for example, is the guru. Although why he wears scrubs on this show is still beyond Tommy? I mean, did he just get out of surgery? Is he doing surgery? What is it? Or Deepak Chopra, I mean, they don't express doubt. Or Andrew Wakefield, I mean, he also doesn't express doubt. He's convinced that he's right. And although I'm sure if I asked everybody in this audience, do you think we're going to know more about science and medicine 100 years from now than we know now? I think you all would say yes, but when it comes to your disease, you want to believe we know everything we need to know now, and that's not true. So that is disconcerting. I think the lesson here is that truths do win out. It just might take a while. Okay, my last point is I think you need to be willing to leave your comfort zone. There is no group of people that have been better about science than the comedians. I mean, take your pick. Penn and Teller, John Oliver, Samantha Bee, Stephen Colbert have all been great about science. This from George Bernard Shaw. You know, if you're going to tell people the truth, make them laugh, otherwise they'll kill you. And I think that's true here. I mean, my one experience, actually, I had a couple experiences on the Colbert Report, but you know, Stephen Colbert, he meets with you before the show, and he says, you know, I play a character. I'm going to stay in character the entire interview. Don't let my character get away with anything. If you do, it's boring. I believe you. I mean, his father was an infectious disease immunology specialist in South Carolina, died when Colbert was only 10 years old in a plane crash, but he is very sympathetic to science. And in this show, he sort of plays the anti-vaccine fool. Just one sort of last point, because my time is coming to an end here, but the one question he asked me, I was fortunate enough to be part of a team at Children's Hospital of Philadelphia that created the bovine human reassortant rotavirus strains that became the vaccine Rotatec, which was licensed in 2006. So the anti-vaccine people often don't like the fact that I am the co-inventor of a vaccine, which makes me in their eyes evil. But what he asked me here was, you know, so it's out there, you're in the pocket of the pharmaceutical industry, how do you respond to it? And I said, you know, I'm not in the pocket of we at Children's Hospital in Philadelphia are not in the pocket of the pharmaceutical industry. If anything, we're in the pocket of children because we do this, this, and this. At which point, 300 people in the studio audience booed. And so I couldn't figure that out. As I was walking out, I asked the associate producer, why did people boo? And she said, you know, people like you don't realize you're on a comedy show, but when you said you were in the pocket of children, it made you sound like a pedophile. So you know, it's like, so my daughter was there, and my daughter was 17 at the time, so we get on the cab, you know, to go back to the train station. This was in New York and going back to Philadelphia. And I said to them at the time, you know, would you ever have thought of that? And my daughter says, yeah, I thought of it, that's why I booed. So I guess my last point here is, I think, to swallow whatever residual pride you have left and in terms of surviving the unspread and get in the game. And the one thing I would say actually to our previous speakers is that you know, you have so many good stories to tell regarding the sort of what we know about the cause and causes of autism. I mean, there really are a lot of good data out there, genetic state, I mean, how one nerve cell communicates with the other. And although I think the anti-vaccine people no longer take this story hostage, I think they really are fading, I think, in many ways. But I do think that as an example, in the 1800s, nobody knew what caused type 1 diabetes. So there was all these crazy sort of cures and crazy causes. There's a book by Chris Feutner called Bittersweet that goes through this. And then in 1921, Banting and Best discovered insulin, and all of that disappeared. I think we're close enough now to at least knowing about sort of what the cause and causes of autism are and things that may be of benefit, that it would be great to have those stories out there in mainstream media to defeat a lot of this sort of craziness that surrounds this disorder. Thank you.
That was amazing. I want to take a couple of minutes to thank our incredible array of sponsors on the ride this year. Here they all are in one quick flick. Thank you to all of our sponsors. Next up, robots. Our next talk is from ASF-funded scientist Dr. Brian Scasselatti of Yale University. He's going to talk about robots as therapy partners for people living with autism. Here he is with a talk that he gave just last week at the Autism Science Foundation's annual Day of Learning.
My name is Brian Scasselatti, and I build robots. In 2001, I was lucky enough to run into Ami Klin and Fred Volkmar, who asked me if I could bring one of my robots into the clinic. Now, the robots that I was building at the time were 400-pound metal monstrosities. They were sharp, they were dangerous, and there was no way we could bring those into the clinic. But my students and I got together, and overnight we put together a very simple robot demonstration. Now, when I go to robotics conferences, I can't show this because it's so simple, it's laughable. But this isn't a robotics conference. So let me introduce you to a little robot named Ezra. Ezra was made out of scraps of plastic, a few ping pong balls, and a hair scrunchie that I had stolen from my wife. Now, this little robot we brought into the clinic, and even though it was incredibly simple, we saw kids respond to it in a way that got us all very excited, both technologists and clinicians. And over the next 10 years, this effect was replicated by dozens of groups using very different kinds of robots all over the world. And I want to show you an example of what we saw at the time that got everyone so excited. This is a video of a 12-year-old boy with ASD. And this is the typical behavior we would see from him. He doesn't like to make eye contact. He doesn't like to engage in conversation. And you can tell this even without the audio on this video. But when we brought a robot into the room, like this little dinosaur robot, he became immediately fascinated by it and very engaged with it. And he jumped at the chance to interact and play with this robot. But most importantly, not only was he engaged and not only was he motivated and excited, but it changed the interactions that he had with the other people in the room. No longer was he responding just to the robot, but he started displaying behavior towards the other people that we typically didn't see him use either in the clinic or at home. You'll see him glance over and make eye contact with the woman on the far right. Now, this behavior persisted even after we had taken the robot away. That enhanced form of social interaction that we saw from him was persistent even when the robot was gone. So we really started to wonder, is this something that we could use to provide some useful tool for children or for therapists? Now, the behavior that we saw, we were so excited by, we asked the families, would you come back day after day? And the second day, the third day, the fourth day, suddenly the results started to fade. Children no longer responded to the robots in the same way. Now, we realized at the time that we were asking them to do something that was very unusual and unrealistic. We were asking them to do the equivalent of laughing at the same joke day after day. That is, we weren't doing what therapists were doing. We weren't providing new and equivalent types of interactions and engagements each day, but we were doing exactly the same thing day after day. This really became, to us then, a technology problem. Could we build machines that could move gradually from child to child, that could learn over periods of time and be responsive over periods of time, so that we didn't have that sort of same joke every day problem? This required a lot of different kinds of technology advances, because moving from the controlled environment of the clinic into the uncontrolled environment of the home, being able to adapt to the abilities and the needs of an individual child, those were hard computational problems. Now, my group had been working with tutoring systems and robots that taught to a wide variety of populations. We taught nutrition to first graders with a little dragon robot. We taught children who spoke only Spanish at home about English in second grade classrooms. We taught third graders how to deal with bullies. And we even taught 6-month-old deaf infants about how to use the prototypes of sign language. And in all of these cases, we were building the technological infrastructure that would allow us to come back and try to do this with kids with ASD. So I want to focus on one particular study as an example of what kinds of interactions robots have with people. And this is something that was published in 2018 and is probably still one of the best examples to date. So at that time, we committed to putting 30 robots into 30 homes for 30 days. And these robots were designed to do half an hour of social skills games with a child and with their parent or guardian. Now, the robot played the same kinds of games that we would have had played if we had had a therapist who could be there 30 minutes every day on the dot, on demand. We played games based on emotion understanding and turn taking, joint attention and perspective taking. And the robot was designed not just to be an interactive partner, but really to facilitate these interactions in the home. That is, it had to do it in the home in what was the most complex environment that we could imagine. In robotics, we would rather put robots on the surface of Mars than in a teenager's bedroom, because the teenager's bedroom is much more complex than the surface of Mars. But even in these difficult environments, we were able to build systems that enhanced the ability of the child to engage with the parent. And that was one of the really important hallmarks of this. We weren't just training the child to interact with a robot, but rather we were enhancing the behavior with another adult. Now, as the kids played these games, we wanted to be sure that the robot was really having some kind of impact on this. And so we had designed these systems to go into the home for 30 days completely autonomously. We dropped them off on day 1, pick them up on day 30. The robots would adapt to that particular child, changing the difficulty and also the method of delivery for the kinds of games that it was supposed to play. It worked in these very difficult and complex environments, and we used the most rigorous kinds of testing that we could imagine. That is, we relied on 3 different kinds of tests to see that the robot was actually providing some kind of benefit. First, simply, we looked at whether or not the kids were doing better in these games. And almost across the board, kids were doing better and better at these social skill games as the month went on. Second, we asked the parents, and the parents told us that the kids were engaging with more eye contact, both with the parents and with other people, that they were initiating communication more often, and that they were responding to communicative bids from other people. But most importantly, we wanted to make these measures independently. And so we had a group of clinicians evaluate these children on a 30-day schedule, 30 days before the robot arrived, on the day the robot arrived, on the day the robot left, and 30 days after the robot had been gone. And in each of these tests, for the child to succeed, they'd have to perform these social skills tests with a different adult, in a different task, in a different social context. That is, they would have to generalize what they had been doing with the robot or with some other training to this unique situation. Now, in the 30 days before the robot was deployed, the children showed no difference. That is, none of the other things that they were engaged in school or other therapies was having an impact on that time period. But in 30 days with the robot, all of our kids showed a statistically significant increase in their social performance. In this case, I'm showing joint attention measures. But after 30 days without the robot, 30 days after the robot had been taken away, their skills had gone back to what they were before the robot arrived. Now, this was exactly what we were expecting, and in many ways what we were hoping for, because we knew that no therapy was going to be effective at long-term behavioral change in just 30 days. This wasn't a magic bullet in any way. But rather, by seeing that this behavior turned on and then sort of faded away, what we were seeing is that this really was a result of the robot itself. Now, I can tell you about it, but I think it's much more interesting to have one of the parents tell you about it. So in this short clip, this is one of the mothers who had just finished the 30 days with the robot, and this is the video she sent us.
Sometimes the therapies they get a little exhausting. He's not excited, and this one wasn't like that. He was ready to play at 7:30 in the morning. That we went to the playground one day, and I noticed immediately there was a group of children playing in the sand, and he walked up to them and said, "Hi, what are you doing?" And I don't think he would have done that a month ago.
And that was the biggest thing that we saw, that kids were excited and that families were happy to be doing these kinds of social skills games. And that motivation, that excitement, is what we think one of the things that these systems really bring. Now, in the intervening years, we've learned a lot about the way that robots behave and about the ways that robots engage with this population. We know that the robots enhance human-to-human interactions, that this is selective with robots. It doesn't work with things on a tablet or a phone, that we can predict the kinds of interactions by looking at the gaze behavior of the child, and that it's not just a matter of novelty or simplicity or because the robot has a limited behavior set. We've seen that there are ways in which we can use these robots to do screening, and that we're starting to understand new ways to engage kids using robots that are in many ways simpler than what the child can perform. But one of the biggest questions that we still have is, why does this work? Why is it that robots provoke these kinds of responses? And I wish I had an answer for that, but no one really knows. We know that these effects are there. We've seen them in many ways. We've seen this replicated by many groups, but we can't tell you exactly why it happens. Why doesn't it work with puppets or with other pieces of technology? Why doesn't it cause other kinds of influence? So that's one of the things as a call to action that we need to really understand going forward. Now, we're not just stopping at this point. We are continuing to try to build systems that can be deployed for longer periods of time, but we're also starting to look at problems not just for children and preteens, but also trying to understand, can we use these robots with adults to do things like job skills training, to help train you to be able to do well at interviews or to be able to respond to social interruptions on the job. This is one prototype system that we've been developing along with a team at Vanderbilt. So finally, I want to say that there is a lot of excitement about robot tutoring. They provide some really unique types of benefits: on-demand access, the ability to personalize the curriculum to the child, to enhance the engagement and the excitement around these protocols. But it also lets us quantify behavior and report back directly to therapists. It allows you to practice in the privacy of your own home with perhaps less social anxiety. And maybe most importantly, the robot can take on roles that we can't as adults or we can't as therapists. One of our favorite things to do is we have the robot make social mistakes and allow the child to correct the robot, to demonstrate their mastery. And it's a fantastic experience for them. So finally, let me end with just one caution to say that there are many systems out there right now that have been commercialized, but none of these have been proven to have any real long-term behavioral result. It's still too young. The technology is still too young to be able to buy something off the shelf. But if you are looking for something, that's going to be helpful, look for something that tries to direct not just behavior toward the robot, but between two people. Look for something that adapts to the child's preferences, to the child's capabilities. Look for something that's designed for long-term engagement. And perhaps most importantly, look for something that's designed to be thrown away eventually, that has a planned obsolescence, rather than building a continuous dependency. With that, let me thank not only the families who have been involved, but especially to my clinical collaborators and some of my students who have taken the lead on this. Without their work on this, we wouldn't be anywhere at all. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Dr. Scasselatti. I have a couple of questions. The first is, How long do you think it'll be before there's an evidence-based, validated therapy for children with ASD involving robotics?
So the challenge here from a technology standpoint is having a system that can last for long enough for us to see that kind of behavioral change. We know that we need a system that has to be adaptive to change and respond to the individual child's strengths and needs. What we have trouble doing is producing enough curriculum into these devices to make it so that they can last for 6 months or 9 months or a year rather than 30 days. And so I think it's likely to be probably in the 5 to 10 year range before we're seeing that, just because there are some fundamental technology problems that we really need to address.
And how do you see the development of and the use of robots being changed by the pandemic?
We've seen actually an increased demand for them, if nothing else. It certainly made research more challenging. Our students were not allowed to actually work with the robots in the lab, much less to have contact with other people for a long time. But we've actually had a call for more and more of these pieces of technology, especially in the education settings. As we're looking at children who are spending more time on their own learning rather than with groups of peers, having some type of one-on-one tutoring that's at your level, that's there when you need it, that's there present physically with you on demand, we've seen a lot of emphasis on that. I can also say there have been other efforts to look at things like whether we can reduce social isolation using teleoperative robot play. And if you're interested in that, there's a site called robotsforgood.yale.edu, and you can look for the project there.
We have another question that may fold into what you just said, is that robots may create responses that are predictable, whereas humans sometimes have unpredictable responses, which may be more anxiety provoking for people with ASD. What do you think about that?
So actually making robots unpredictable is one of the easiest things we can do. In many cases, one of the challenges of doing this is actually putting together systems that are reliable enough and robust enough that we can compare them accurately from one deployment to another. The scariest part of putting robots in the home for 30 days was that I had no idea what they were going to be doing by the time the second day rolled around. So while it is true that we think about robots as being sort of repetitive mechanical automatons, modern robots have very easy capabilities to be able to vary their behavior over a wide range. So I don't think that's one of the things we're likely to run into as problematic in the near future.
And then one final question before we have to break. Are there responses different in boys and girls to robot therapies?
We haven't seen much of a gender-based difference in responses. Now, we've been working primarily with kids under the age of 12, so preteens for the most part. And we are very conscious about trying to make these robots appealing to both boys and girls and to kids, regardless of what they envision the robot to be, however they gender the robot itself. If anything, we see just as much caregiving behavior, just as much interest and excitement in the robot in boys as we do in girls. And that's not what we see when we think about adults interacting with technology.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Scasselatti.
That is truly amazing. Studies like these aren't possible without fundraising from events like Wall Street Rides Far. So if you're a rider or a walker who's been raising funds, or if you've donated to the ride yourself, thank you. If you're motivated to do more, please visit wallstreetridesfar.org/donate. Thank you for your generosity. One thing that we know about autism is that while it's more prevalent in males, it can be more pronounced in females, and yet girls have been studied far less than boys. The Autism Science Project, Autism Sisters Project, is addressing that issue. Let's learn a bit more about this important initiative.
The Autism Sisters Project came to be when scientists began to see that there were protective factors that protected girls against autism.
For years, we have known that 4 times as many boys are diagnosed with autism as girls. What we've learned over the past 5 years from all of the genetics research that we've done is that the genes that cause autism are actually equally distributed in boys and girls.
Even within the same family, we could see a mutation in a boy causing autism and the same mutation in a sister not causing autism. That was for us an aha moment.
We said, this is the group that we need to study. We need to understand what's protecting these girls.
If we were able to find a protective factor and we were able to find what causes that protection, we could make a drug, we can invent a new therapy, and that wouldn't just help the people who are affected with autism, but it would help those down the road who are at risk for an autism diagnosis.
So we are building a database of the siblings, the female siblings of people with autism, to try to search for this female protective effect.
We think the more families we have, the better our results will be.
To be able to engage siblings, brothers, sisters, and both parents in the process will give us an incredible wealth of information.
Tommy and Evie have a great relationship. She knows and understands him in a way that nobody else does.
I was excited to participate in the project because I love my brother and because the Autism Sisters Project seems like just an amazing opportunity.
It just gives me a lot of hope to see Evie participate in this project where siblings come together as a family. It gives the siblings such a positive message about autism.
It's so easy to participate in the Autism Sisters Project. You don't even have to give blood anymore. We can collect your DNA through a saliva sample. We need people who will give a spit for autism.
Families will have the opportunity to come into the clinic. They will complete several thinking games and language games on the computer. They'll fill out some forms, and then we'll do some assessments in person as well.
Over time, we're going to do them online, so people may not even have to travel in the second wave of the study.
Honestly, it was so easy. The main part is just spitting in the cup. It's so straightforward and simple. You just have to spit a little bit, fill to a certain line, and then you're done.
The Autism Sisters Project is a very big and very challenging project. We need as many families as possible to contribute DNA, and we need as many families as possible to contribute funds so that we can analyze that DNA. If we can isolate the female protective effect, it can really change the way our loved ones live with autism.
The Autism Sisters Project will change the science of autism because we're looking at factors that confer resilience and possibly protection.
I don't want to change my brother, but if there was something that I could do to help him, I know I definitely would. And by participating in the Autism Sisters Project, I'm getting like one step closer. Give a spit. Give a spit.
Give a spit for autism.
I gave a spit for autism, and you can too.
To learn more, visit autismsistersproject.org.
Okay, are you ready to move again? We are approaching the end of our online activities for this morning, but we're going to leave it up on an active note. Up last in our group is our group Peloton workout. I'm going to turn it over to Alycia for this activity, but before I do, I just wanted to say thank you to everyone for joining us this morning. I hope you'll return at 4 o'clock this afternoon for our Strava Challenge Awards and a few closing words. All right, over to you, Alycia. You look ready. All right, over to Alycia.
I have my Wax Bar t-shirt on, and I'm ready to get started.
Awesome. Have fun. It's all yours.
So, Blake, are we going to use a different Zoom for this, or should we just get on this one?
Use your Zoom. So, if you want to put your link in the chat, and I'm going to put it on the Facebook page.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me just.
And we have it. It's up there on a slide, but that's hard for people. But if you put it in the chat, and I'm going to put it on the Facebook group.
Okay.
And so you might want to go for like a minute before you guys start to give people time to jump over there.
Right.
And we will go like that.
Where did it go?
How fun.
Okay, here's the ID. I'll just put the ID in the chat.
Awesome. Great. And they don't need a password?
No.
Okay.
No.
Awesome. I'm going to go put this on Facebook, so give me 1 minute. And then
Okay.
we can get started. Awesome. Thank you so much.
Okay, I'll
Thank
see you
for
guys on the
everything you
other
do.
Zoom because I have to exit this Zoom to go to the other Zoom.
All right. We will see everybody over there, and we'll see you back at 4 o'clock for the Strabo Awards. Thanks,
Okay.
everybody.